Welcome everyone to today's session. This evening, I have the pleasure of hosting Robert. Is it Manassia? Manassia, how do you pronounce your surname, Robert?
Manasir.
Oh, I got it completely wrong.
No, you were pretty close. I've been called a lot worse, so it's all
You're
good.
too kind. I'm kind of going with the French angle with it, but it's Manassia. No, did I say that correctly?
Manasir. It's a
Manassia.
hard seer.
A hard
It's
seer,
actually
exactly.
Italian.
We had this conversation, but it
Yes, it
sounds
looks
so
French
French.
though.
Right, right. Okay. Robert Manasseh. I don't know if I'm gonna get that right. Bob, good old
Bob's
friend
a
Bob.
lot easier, Steph. Just Bob.
Oh, our friend Bob joins us this evening to talk about the art of scaling. Right, let me just scroll down to your fantastic intro, Rob. So, Rob is a serial entrepreneur and branded growth builder with a wealth of experience spanning over 167 international startups, 70 exit projects, and the commercialization of 400 products and services. Robert has a proven track record of scaling 125 companies, creating thousands of rapid expansion campaigns, and achieving remarkable results with his unique blend of storytelling and customer engagement expertise. With over $100 million raised for startups and a consistent 25% revenue increase for his acceleration clients, Robert's insights into strong culture creation, fiscal controls, and revenue growth are unparalleled. His management of the DPCD fund has yielded a 2.6 times return, and his nearly 100% staff retention over decades is a testament to his leadership and strategic acumen. Robert, welcome to this one-day community event. What an impressive bio.
Just a lot of mistakes along the way, Steph.
Well, we'll cover the highs and the lows. I never do my own intro, but my name is Stephanie Melodia, and I am so grateful and honored to be one of the other mentors on the One Day program. After running my own marketing agency, I now host a podcast called Strategy and Tragedy, hence the interview role that I have here. And to your point, Robert, on the mistakes you've learned along the way, we will be covering the ups and the downs. Ladies and gentlemen, please give Robert a virtual round of applause. Please throw in all the emojis and all the love. Let's give Robert a warm welcome to this evening session.
You're too kind, Steph. I haven't done anything for them yet. They shouldn't say anything yet. They can tell
Well,
me how
just
bad I do at the end.
let's get a temperature check at the beginning and the end. No, don't be silly, Rob. Your bio is absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, you've learned a lot along the way, so we are very honored to have you here and share some of the, the lessons that you've learned along the way. First off, I have to ask, maybe this is because I am a Brit and not American. What is a DPCD fund?
It's just the initials. It's Diamond Point Co-Development Fund. We started it a
Oh,
number of years ago. It's just we put everything as an acronym
yeah. Okay, amazing.
because
So,
we're
well,
lazy and we just want to put letters.
no, I'm glad to hear it wasn't some sort of industry acumen that I wasn't familiar with. So
No.
that's a relief. Robert, I think, a really interesting starting point with your story is actually the business that you operate at the moment. We mentioned as part of your intro that you've got 100% staff retention rate, which is phenomenal. And what was interesting, we're looking at this through the lens of scaling, growth. Audience members, please throw in any specific questions you have for Robert as well. We'll do a Q&A at the end. But what I was really interested in learning about, Robert, with your story is that you don't have your own you don't have a website for your own business. And yet you've managed to scale to, extraordinary heights. You deliver fantastic service to your clients. I'd love to get your views on growth without the typical marketing assets like a website that one might expect you to have.
Yeah, and we had a website for years, 5 years ago. So just to go back a little so people understand, right? We're a white label deploy team company. So we drop into companies large and small to do something, to fix something, to create a new division. So we are representing that company when we land on the ground, wherever we are. In that scenario, no one's finding my company on a website. And we weren't doing a good job, to be brutally honest, with the website because we can't talk about a lot of our clients because it's confidential. And that's the white label part. So at a certain point, I was just looking at it, I was like, no clients are coming to me from the internet. They're not, I can't speak about what we do really until it's after the fact. So why do we need a website? Because everybody we deal with are CEOs, boards of advisor, boards of investors, or boards of directors, VC funds, or large organizations that already know us or have been referred or introduced to us. So the website made no sense for us. That does not mean it doesn't make sense for everybody else. And we have a number of clients and partners that we run their websites for them. But for us specifically, there was no need. And since that time, we've grown about 400% a year.
That's incredible. I love that. And I wanted to start the conversation there because A, it's so rare to meet a successful entrepreneur like without a website in this day and age. But also, I think that a really important takeaway, which I'd love to dive into here with you, Robert, is how much we default to what we think that we should have, whether it is a website or some kind of social media presence, without actually taking that step back and looking at where actually does our audience find us? Where do we need to be to show up for them? So in your instance, it's mainly referrals, right? Was there any other kind of growth channel for you with your
It's
business?
introductions. I mean, tied to our retention rate of staff is our retention rate of clients. And we've had clients that have literally started 8 or 9 businesses over the last 2 decades with us. So,
Wow.
and because the model isn't really, I mean, I'm dropping teams in, right? We're deploying to do strategy and execution. You know, there's a certain level of non-scale there because we can't
Hmm.
do 1,000 clients at a time. But
Yeah.
I mean, it also goes back, and you brought it up, is everybody's jumping on the AI, but they don't know how to use it. Like
Mm.
you should understand it and see how it fits in your business. Every company doesn't need AI. And I know, you know, there are companies trying to sell the service of AI. And a long time ago, because I can show my age, websites were supposed to be the be all and end all, and all other advertising was going to disappear. And that
Yeah.
didn't, and it never does. It's another piece of the puzzle that we have to figure out. And the hard thing for smaller businesses is you can't do it all. You don't have economy of scale.
Yeah.
So
So jumping off from that pearl of wisdom, what advice could you give our early stage founders on the call with us now in terms of a decision-making framework to prioritize growth channels, sales, marketing when you can't do it all, you don't have endless budgets? How can every business is different? So what's a decision-making framework where entrepreneurs can decide what to prioritize?
yeah, and I give this with all our founders and squad is you got to journal all your activities and measure the result and double down on the things that are working and almost
Mm,
leave the rest of it away. Just
mm,
leave it to the side. You don't have to be on 5 channels of social media. You know, if one's working, stay with it for now. In the future, you can grow. But right now, you need that early traction. And if you're not measuring your activities to a result, you have no baseline to figure out what's working or not. And you're just throwing a lot of stuff around. So
mm,
for me, it's always really simple. Keep track of every activity you're doing and measure it. And the ones that
mm.
are working, go deeper in
Yeah.
until they don't work anymore. But you really have to understand your audience. I mean, we do this at One Day all the time, right? Product market fit. Who's going to buy first? Who's the zealots and the ambassadors? I mean, that's where you have to focus at the beginning. If you're trying
Yeah.
to do it all, you're not going to do any of it well.
Yeah. And at this point in the conversation, I think I need to ask you about attribution. So, all fine and well to say, keep a journal, track what you're doing, track your experiments, what's actually coming through. But then, of course, you've got that saying that not everything worth, not everything that can be measured is worth measuring. And in this day and age, where we've had this boom, you mentioned AI, we've always had these like boom and bust. We had this boom of performance marketing. So, for anyone on the call, performance marketing is essentially any kind of online digital marketing activity where you put some paid media spend behind it. So, things like social ads, PPC, pay per click campaigns, Google ads. That has had a huge boom in recent years. I feel like that's dying down. Can you give any tips to our entrepreneurs as well when it comes to that tracking, that measuring, what's working so that we're not just building a case for performance marketing all the time?
Yeah, and I don't think you should pay for anything. Try everything organically first. Test it with the free and the social media channels. You can test messaging. And I'll just give you how we look at social media metrics. We don't care about the vanity metrics at all. I don't care how many likes we get, how many views. What I care about is the inbound. How many people are reaching out to me to DM me or ask me a question? That's what we measure the most. So the rest of it can go away as far as we're concerned. And obviously, certain industries need those vanity metrics to keep driving. But for our business and for probably most of the founders in One Day at this stage, try to get the real relationships built. The rest of the stuff you can make happen. But if you're not having real conversations with real people about your business and your offerings, you're never going to figure out what's your magic. Because the magic doesn't come from us. It comes from the marketplace, the people who are buying us. They're going to tell us what they see in us. And that's when I say double down. That's what I'm doubling down on. I didn't come to that. I got a lot of grief from my investors and my staff and my board of directors when I took the websites down. But I knew in my heart that our clients didn't need it. We were getting paid. They weren't looking at anything I was doing on the website. It was just a drain on our resources. It wasn't worth it. So you have to have those real conversations to figure out what's right or wrong for you. I know there's a lot of great books and you can follow everybody's theories, but you're the expert in your own business. And if you don't take that on, you're just going to kind of flow or float with everybody else.
Yeah,
You got to
I
take a
love
stand.
that.
You know this, Steph. You ran your own marketing firm. You got to take a stand on something. It doesn't always have to be right, but you have to take a stand, and it has to be backed up with whatever facts you can figure out. And it's usually the facts is the conversations you're having.
Yeah. So on that note, do you have any advice to give to the more introverted entrepreneurs? I feel like that's quite a blocker with a lot of people. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to actually like have to get out there and actually speak to people. I can't just put this post out. What could you give to motivate people to drive those real relationships?
Practice. You just got to do it, right? Look, I knew that chair would break. You got to just, I mean, if you're leading a team, if you're leading an idea, at some point you're going to have to hire people and they're going to look to you for leadership or management or help. You have to own the stage at a certain point. And if you're really that introverted, that's the time to start looking for a partner that offsets that, right? And we talk about this, and we talked about this in our last talk together. Building a team doesn't mean I'm getting a lot of bobs around me. That would be a disaster. I'm getting people that have way better skills in the things that I'm absolutely horrendous at. And that's a true team because we kind of play off each other. They fix the things I make a mistake on. I fix the stuff that I'm focused on and passionate about. Maybe you need a partner then. If that is such a hurdle, but also, is it just you get in your own way? Right?
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like our role as mentors on the program as well, like I, for one, I'm certainly becoming better at distinguishing between what is a valid concern, like let's hear out, are these actually like validated reasons, valid blockers, or are you getting in your own way? Are you making your own blockers? Do you just need that push from us as mentors to help you get out there? Okay, so
And
you
I'm just
mentioned,
going to add one thing about
yeah.
One Day and their experience here. Use this to fail safely. Like when you're in
Mm,
squad or you're in your one-to-ones, take chances there because who's going to know the people that you've built a relationship with and they're going to help you. I
yeah.
know we're all afraid of failure, but I didn't get to this stage without having immense failures. And I've learned from them, right? If you just keep having failures and not learn anything, you're never going to scale because you're never going to grow.
Yeah.
Take the safe failures that we provide at One Day
Mm,
before you go into market and spend money and,
I
really
love
hurt
that.
your reputation.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And that is, ultimately what we exist for, right? Is to put really to push you out of your comfort zone and to push you to fail and doing it, as Robert says, in that safe environment, like fail safely. If you don't make mistakes, you're not growing, you're not learning, you're not testing things. What I would just add to that, I think, as well, is, the 18-month program, well, this isn't about One Day, this is about you, Robert, but as we're on the subject here, I think, the older we get, the faster time seems to fly by. And at least with my squad as well, we're about halfway through the whole program and it's unbelievable. And I feel like it is that classic small talk of like, oh my God, like, we're now closer to 2025 than we are to the start of 24. And I think just on your wavelength here, Robert, I think another message I just want to put out there to the audience is remember, like, you have this set window of time. This is for you. This is your program. Even events like these as well. Like Robert's here now live with me to distill his wisdom and share that with you. If you've got any specific questions you want to ask him or use this as an opportunity to network with each other, now is the time. We're going to be, this interview is going to end. The program is going to end. So seize this opportunity as well with both hands.
And we're
All right,
all in
Robert.
this together. But Steph, we're
Yeah.
all in this together as one day, right? And you bring up everybody focuses on money in business. The real resource we have to be really cognizant of is time.
Yeah.
Because you don't have forever in
Yeah.
business. And if you're static and not moving anywhere, your business isn't going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I think people should focus more on time. And I love the sprint model, as we've talked about. But I think time's the bigger resource you have to worry about before you start
Yeah.
worrying about money.
Exactly. And I mean, the definition of a startup, according to Eric Ries in the Lean Startup book, is a vehicle to acquire as many learnings as possible. So that's another thing in the same spirit here to everyone to underscore is fail safely, be aware that time is passing, use that time, use that sprint kind of approach to acquire as many learnings as possible. One of my founders on my squad as well, he had such a revolutionary mindset during the program where something failed and he was like, but it's a good thing because we found out that this didn't work. We acquired a learning. If you're static, if you're not moving, then you're not learning anything. But anyway, Robert, back to you. I love
No,
this.
so I'm going to add to that because people who want to scale think that they're just going to increase what they used to do. And you hear
Mm,
this all the time, and it's true. What got you to this point is not going to get you to grow and scale. You have to
yeah.
literally change your process. And I can share one if you want.
Yeah.
We are in a time where my company is growing. My system of white labeling is not as scalable as the new group of investors want. So we're adding a consultant division because now we can take on 2,500 with our bench and our staff. We can take on 2,500 clients at a time as a consultancy. We've never been a consultancy, but that was the model I had to incorporate to scale this company to the next level. So
Mm,
nothing like we've done before. Obviously, all that experience matters because as consultants, you're just bringing a wealth of information to anybody who needs it. But that's proof that what got me to this point is not going to get us
yeah.
growing larger. And for all of us, what got you here is not going to get you to the next stage. So you have to really
Exactly.
start thinking about that.
What got you here won't get you there. Yeah, absolutely. Can you share on that note then, Robert, can you share anything in terms of like how you came up with the idea, from that creative entrepreneurial perspective to um, you know, re-engineer the setup in order to scale? Did you kind of brainstorm with your team or how did you go about that problem solving?
Yeah, so we have scheduled brainstorming and we're really focused on professional development of our staff. It's very hard to get a job in because once you get in, you never leave. And the training is literally like a Navy SEAL boot camp where you're trying a lot of different things in business to see where you have a natural tendency to exceed because we want you to be successful. The things I can't teach is usually the vetting points, right? Life philosophy, work ethic, you don't need to be micromanaged. That's our culture, right? We just accountable and go. And if you make mistakes, we'll fix it. So to get me, we had a lot of brainstorming. We had a lot of push from a lot of different stakeholders that we're not reaching everybody we should be reaching. But it goes back to my people. Some of them were underutilized. And some of them, as they get older, have family dynamics that they can't travel like we've done for 20 years. Like we've traveled all over the globe. So how do we address that? It's really looking to the relationships that led me to, well, this is probably a time that we can add this, even though I bristle at the consultancy thing. Like once again, I had to put my bias away because it's best for my people, it's best for the future clients, it's best for the organization. So that's how we came to it. And we've been working on it for a year and a half. So it's not like I'm rushing into this. We're taking our time to do
Wow.
it right. So
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And I guess that kind of links, connecting that to the time point. I think there's also an entrepreneurial skill, whatever we can, what name we want to give it, right? Between knowing the difference between basically like when to go fast, when to go slow.
Yep.
And I know that in the latter stages of the program, so I don't know if any of our founders are already at this point, but there is this module on decision making. Have you got to this point as well, Robert, later on in the program?
I have not yet.
So fantastically, again, like kudos to One Day for coming up with the curriculum and setting this all up in such a fantastic way. Is there's a whole decision making module, and spoiler alert, one of the lessons in it introduces the system one and system two thinking, and how to go. Some decisions you want to just do as soon as possible and ASAP. Move fast, break things, learn along the way, move fast. And then you've got as long as possible, ALAP. So knowing when to take your time, knowing really like, is this an irreversible decision? Do we want to spend that time researching, consulting, dotting the I's, checking the T's? You nodded, you had quite a reaction to that, Robert. So are you kind of nodding knowingly to something here with especially with your consulting arm?
Well, I think that just goes back to our One Day tribe and team, right? Is
Mm,
when you're new to all of this, we hear a lot of how fast you have to go. It's always
yeah.
about speed, but it can't always be about speed because the speed takes away the detail. And if you're an owner of a company, you need to at least understand the pieces in your company. And sometimes that takes a while to kind of get your head around. And I
Mm,
mean, our hiring process is ridiculous. It's 18 months to get in the
mm,
door,
yeah,
right? To
yeah.
be a full-time employee, it's 18 months, but I set that up because I didn't want churn. I do believe in team and culture over everything else. We can solve anything if you have the right people on your team. And I'm not saying me, I'm probably the weakest link all the time, right? But so people look at it like that's ridiculous, but it works for us. And that's because I
Mm,
understand what we need to succeed. And you only
yeah.
learn that by failing a lot and picking yourself back up and saying, okay, that didn't
Mm.
work. I don't like that. Let's move on. So
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I guess, with the ASAP and ALAP decision-making principles I just touched on, it applies exactly to your point on the hiring. It's hire slow, fire fast, right? Like really take your time, who you're letting into your team, train them up, get that culture fit. If it's not working out, you make that decision, move quickly. We're talking about people, culture here, Robert. I know you also mentioned before about AI. We touched on some of these like trendy buzzwords, but I remember something you said that really stuck with me, which was throughout all of these, phases, whether it's everyone thinking websites were going to come along and kill print media, and now AI is going to take over. Along that time, you said to me, there are things that remain the same, and human psychology, we still work and operate in the same way. I'd love to hear your more expanded thoughts on that. And specifically, I think as it relates to attention, people's attention spans, and then, of course, what we can do with that when it comes to kind of marketing growth.
yeah, so I mean, there's always going to be new technology. And I think one of the biggest mistakes is people throw this new technology on their team without any kind of training. Like I went through AI training with my team and I made more mistakes than all of them together, but they saw the effort of why we thought it was important. And that's kind of just the mirror, right? I can't tell somebody to do something unless I'm going to try it so I can have real conversations. But
Mm,
the reality is, regardless of what business you're in, at the end of the day, it's people to people. People are
mm,
buying you, right? People are working with you.
mm,
You might be taking investors in. So if you don't have that honest relationship that allows for difference of opinion, you're losing all the magic of what happens when you put a great team together or great company together with a lot of
mm,
diverse perspective. Because the
mhm,
magic's not from me saying to this group or you talking to the group. It's from all of us looking at a problem very differently and figuring out what's the best way to tackle it to solve it
mm.
for our clients.
Yeah,
And I
I
think
love that.
that part will never go away. Like
Yeah, yeah.
AI can help with things, it's not going to do all of that, right? So, and we use
Yeah.
AI to train our junior creatives to just come up with different themes when they don't they're not that confident yet in putting forth their creative ideas. So,
Yeah. And using it as a co-pilot to just kind of give you those prompts and something to bounce off. And it's a lot easier to build on something as opposed to being given a blank sheet of paper, right? You've got just those prompts from AI and then you start getting the wheels turning. When it comes to the consumer side of the fence, in terms of people at large, so outside of kind of your team internally, when it comes to people, I remember you sort of saying something around, the psychology with the masses, that hasn't changed over the decades in your experience. What can we leverage? We talk a lot about the attention economy these days, especially through that marketing lens. Everyone talks about, you got to grab people's attention. What's your kind of hot take on like consumer psychology, people's attention spans, and therefore like what we can do with it today with our sales and marketing as it relates to business growth, if that makes sense?
yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier about product market fit and understanding what drives whoever we're trying to market to. And that's where research comes in. That's where user experience. If we know the triggers, we can talk to them so they'll pay attention. People will pay attention to things they care about. It's when you get hit with just ridiculous, stupid noise that we just glaze over. So it's really being powerful with your messaging and the words you use to attract a certain audience. People will
Mm,
pay attention. I think,
mm,
we've had a lot of success across the board. One Day's had great success because we're talking to our tribe, people who want to start something, but are afraid to take every step on their own,
mm,
which makes sense, right? That's a smart decision making right there. Is like, I know coaching matters. And quite honestly, just going back to why we got to consultant during COVID, a lot of wonderful small businesses went out because they didn't have access to mentors and coaches. And we took that personally because
mm,
that's our community, right? That's our economy. That's the
mm,
fabric. And they weren't getting the help they really needed. So how do you
mm.
fix that in a very small way? And I think that goes back to everything we're trying to do on One Day too.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one thing is getting people's attention, and another thing is holding it.
Yep.
So in this day and age, with so much noise on social media, the trends, they seem to be getting like bigger and faster. So, for example, we're only just coming out now of the very demure, very mindful, very cutesy trend. Please, can I get a reaction from the audience if you know what on earth I'm talking about? But no sooner have the brands cottoned on to this TikTok trend, and it's like already old news. So I think that you've got, yeah, these like hyper fast cycles. And I think that like brands, you can put a foot wrong if like you just try and kind of jump on a trend. You can, you can look like a dad trying to be cool if you get on it too late when the moment has already passed, right? So it's kind of knowing what you stand for, what your values, what your audience cares about, and staying true to that, not getting sucked into too much of that trend kind of cycle. But then, as I say, going back to one thing is getting people's attention, another thing is holding it.
But
What have
also
you
proving it,
gone,
like
sorry?
proving that the relationship matters to you, to the consumer, right? We can use all that to maybe get initial interest. And I'm just gonna say I'm very honest with all my bias. I hate clickbait. I've never used it. Some of my clients mandate it. I hate it. I think there's no real relationship built. Somebody's getting mad because they clicked on something they thought they were going to get information on and it changed
Right.
overnight, right? Or within milliseconds. But if
Yeah.
you have the feedback system of a conversation going with your audience and that entails a relationship build, if you have that, that also protects you when the economy starts tilting the wrong way,
Mm, mm,
right?
yeah.
Because they know that you've shown at least some level of care beyond the transaction.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think really getting that again, that all magic product market fit from the very get-go is how they're giving you permission to open that door to build that relationship, because I can imagine some of the questioning founders kind of being like, yeah, but like how do I get them to how do I get them into that conversation to build, to even be given that permission to build that relationship. And that's where, exactly to your point, and the whole one day structure, you start with solving that problem. You've got something that you're an entrepreneur in servitude. You're solving a problem that's servile to them, to the customer, because if you get to help them, you then get permission to build that relationship with them over time. But you're never going to be able to leapfrog straight over to becoming their besties when you haven't done anything to help them or demonstrate that trust in the first place.
But I think it starts at the newbie founder level, is being honest with where you are to the people you're talking about. People,
Mm.
regardless that we want to be sold the Hollywood dream of being on a poster, people value the honest conversation. And
Mm.
I think getting into the habit of being honest. Yeah, we all have to be honest with ourselves, right? Now, I always do this, do pro and con lists with all my staff all the time, even what people see in you that you don't see in yourself. But being able to create that kind of honest dialogue with anybody will give you better insight and probably better feedback. Because if you're just trying to sell something, there's no real relationship there. And if you're just trying to
Yeah.
fake it all the time, it doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So, Robert, I want to come over, switching gears a little bit. I was really interested to hear that you scale physical products with First Strike Incubator. Now, the subject of today's session is all about scaling, its growth, and I feel like that carries a lot of connotations in the tech industry, like scaling a tech product, B2B SaaS. Can you share kind of how scaling growth for physical products mainly differs to something like a tech product?
Yeah, and we've scaled a lot of tech products. And the biggest difference is I can create patches to fix our mistakes once it's in market. With hard products, you can't. So if we want to talk about time and go fast or go slow, product design and development should be a fairly slow process, because if you make a mistake and go to manufacture too early, you got to recall all those. You can't just, or you throw them all out. So the biggest difference is the actual design and development, which has to use user experience, has to use interaction with whoever's going to use the product or tool we're making. And that's the biggest difference, because it's fairly, fairly easy to scale SaaS and tech versus a hard product. Really, for that issue, if we make one big mistake, and we just did one where the width didn't fit over the cylinder, we only did a small batch, which is the other thing, do it all in small batches. It didn't fit over the cylinder, so we had to throw them all out and start over. So we lost time, we lost
No.
money. Our ego got a little bruised, but
Oh
that's
no.
okay, you know.
So how can an early stage kind of product business, how can they apply some of that rapid test and learn that, again, the lean startup talks about in that techie sense? How can you do that before you launch a market out to the public?
You spend a lot of time in proof of concept and then build a prototype. And the beauty now is most things can be 3D manufactured fairly quickly.
Mhm,
You're not
mhm,
spending a lot of money. You're creating it, right? You're creating it and then letting people use it, because they're going to use it differently than you designed it for. That is the known, I can guarantee it. Whatever you're
mhm,
building, when you put it in the hand of somebody that doesn't know what you built it for, is going to use it differently. So we
mhm,
do a lot of proof of concept and MVP stuff before we ever get to any fabrication. And then
mhm,
even when we're in fabrication, there's a few levels and it's all very small batch. And then once we're comfortable to take that next leap of faith, we go to manufacture. And that's the scale part, right? So we're kind of drawing it out longer to make sure that we don't have those massive recalls, because we couldn't
mm.
survive, right? That's a
Yeah.
reality of small business. You can't survive.
Mm.
So
So how do you reconcile the fast-moving world that we live in at the moment? I mentioned trends before. It's pretty hard to kind of jump on a trend quickly when you're manufacturing something physical. You go through all of that testing. I guess, like, I'd love to understand a bit more about what are the timelines. I'm sure it's different depending on specific products. I'd love to hear also some of the specific products, so we can kind of clearly visualize the sort of things that you're talking about, and how I'd love to get your thoughts on, like, that tension point between not missing the boat on an opportunity versus taking your time, because you can take too long with some things, right? So I feel like there was three questions in one there, Robert.
Yeah, and the timing thing, everybody has to know for their own business, right? It's about resources available. We tell all of our inventors, don't quit your day job. Like, because the moment you quit it, all you're going to worry about is money, and it's going to take money to build this. But it really depends when you're talking about physical products, what safety you have to worry about. So one of our products is a motorcycle, obviously very high safety concerns. The other one's
Mm,
a bicycle, slightly less, still safety concerns. Some of our other products are new cabinet systems, right? New closet systems, so it goes in the house. Not as many safety concerns, and we could probably put some in. Well, we put a few in to closets to test them, right? But it really, product really depends on what level of safety we have to worry about first. And that's going to
mm,
dictate most of your timeline, because
mm-hmm.
at certain industries, you have to be tested at an independent lab. That could take, that's their own time frame. That's not your time frame. You're not dictating any of that piece. But you
Yeah.
can make you can make pieces to test tolerance and fit while that's happening. But it
Mm,
really depends on what products, and it's really hard to talk generally because
yeah.
every product is so different. I
Mm,
think
yeah.
most people over engineer. I think the other, go after one thing the product does great. Don't try to add more until you get that
Mm,
one down. Just like
yeah.
we say, when we say product market fit, we're not saying this is the only group you're ever going to talk to. This is your starting point. This is to make hopefully some money and get some intel so you can grow your company smartly. Same thing with a product. We get a lot of people come to the incubator that they want their product to do 7 things. That's
Yeah.
really hard to engineer. It's also very expensive. How about start with the most important? And your audience should tell you what the most important is. So we always
Yeah.
kind of bring people back off the ledge of just kind of throwing it all out there and wanting to do everything at once. And I think that has a lot of relevance to any company, tech. It doesn't matter. Getting
Mm,
one thing that you do really well to start can apply to almost any industry. So
yeah, definitely. A universal truth there, whether you're building bikes or mobile apps. I know that's really helpful. I love how, safety is going to dictate timeline. You're never going to compromise on something like that. And it just, I'm thinking about how some of these other big companies have revolutionized the supply chain in their business. So Shein, for example, comes to mind in the fashion world, who I can go on the record with this. I think they are disgusting in terms of, I don't know how this huge giant of a business can contribute to the fashion pollution problem in 2024, but credit where credit is due, they have completely re-engineered their supply chain. And Zara back in the day was a leader in this as well, where something would go on the runway, they'd rapidly turn it around from design to production to the store in like 6 weeks. So I think, to your point, it's hard to generalize. Depending on the specific business, there might be ways that you can innovate, but none of those things are for the sake of it. They are all solving a real kind of market demand that's needed there.
and your two examples, they have economy of scale. They're very large organizations with very large reach, and the key is
Yeah,
distribution. They already have their
yeah,
distribution in place. When we're all starting our companies, it's really hard to build that distribution network. And if you're going to
yeah.
scale anything, I would worry about how many places are going to take your product way before thinking about increasing more product.
Yeah, for sure. You always need more demand than you always want to get ahead of your skis at least a little bit in that sense, right? Robert, as always with you, the time has absolutely flown. I cannot believe that we're already kind of three-quarters of the hour in. Um, Audience members, please send us any questions that you've got. We'll see if we have time for an audience Q&A. As usual, if this is your first time joining us, we have a bit of a quiz at the end as well, so make sure you can stick around with us for that. With that being said, Rob, I'll ask you one or two more questions just while the audience thinks about what they want to ask you. I want to go back to, us both as mentors on the program. It's very easy to dish out advice to others. And I think with entrepreneurship in particular, because there isn't really much of a rule book, at least until one day came along and started to put some frameworks together, it felt a little bit more sort of like anyone can tell anyone else what to do, what to not do. What's some of the top pieces of advice that you cannot stand, Rob? So you mentioned, well, you can't stand clickbait. When it comes to entrepreneurial advice, what are some common things out there that you just can't stick?
Build it and they will come. That's not always true. I'm a living example of that. Fake it till you make it, I can't stand. I mean, for all the reasons that we've talked about, right? It doesn't build a real relationship. How are you going to go back to people after you told them this bag of garbage and say, okay, well, now I'm ready for you? Those things just really, for me, are just not the kind of relationships I want with people. And I understand sometimes people need to put a better face on to try to get in a door. But if they don't want to accept you in the door, figure out a better way, or maybe they're not the right person or organization to work with. There's a
I love
lot of
that.
opportunity, and I think new founders need to be a little more picky. And the one thing I will say is anybody who's giving you advice, ask more questions from them to make sure they didn't just read it in a book. Nothing wrong with reading in a book, but if they didn't apply it, they're telling you how to apply it doesn't ring true to me. So
Yeah. I love that. I love that, Robert. These hot takes, mic drop moments. I love that. Um, yeah, no, I completely stand by that. All right, well, we haven't had any more questions come in through on the chat, so I'm going to go over to our quiz. Let's see who has been paying attention. Everyone's just been too engrossed listening to you, Robert.
or I put him
But
to sleep, Steph. I might have put him to sleep.
no, no. We did have some. Right, hang on, let me catch up with the chat. All right, so people just needed a chance to type. So we got a question in from Lynn. A question for Robert. Who inspired you the most in your journey of business building? Great question, Lynn. Thanks for that one.
Thanks. Everybody I meet. So one of my
Oh,
earliest careers was filmmaker, and you learn that everybody has a great story if you listen. And I think what we
hmm.
try to teach it one day, and what I think we are all in the habit of as entrepreneurs, is we observe. We're detectives. We're scientists on many levels. It's You can learn so much. I learned a lot of cash flow from a local pizzeria owner because he was
Mm.
phenomenal with cash flow. He had no formal education whatsoever, but I'm inspired by people I meet at One Day and elsewhere by what they're trying to do, their passion. I mean, so, if you kind of in that lifelong learning, every day can be kind of interesting and motivating. So,
I
and
love that,
my own
Robert.
staff, right? They motivate me and they call me a lot of names that I won't repeat here, but it's all in fun. So
Robert, I love that. I'm already, in the little that we've had to do with each other, I am already picking up on very consistent themes with you that are really coming through really loud and clear, and they're all so sweet and lovely. I love that. All right, we've had a whole kind of influx of questions now, so people just needed a chance to get typing. David, Robert, I have to tell you, he's not sleeping. He's drinking in the great wisdom, of course. Question from Daniel. Do you have any book recommendations? Something that was impactful in your journey?
yeah, and it's not a business book. It's a biography of the person who built the road system in New York called The Power Broker.
No way, Robert. That is so left field. What's it called? The Power
The
Broker.
Power Broker by Robert Caro, Caro. The
Sorry, hang
Life
on.
of Robert Moses. And if you're in New York State, you see that name a lot. Fascinating journey of how one person kind of revolutionized the thinking and the growth of Manhattan, where I grew up, right? But beyond it to reach the outer boroughs and upstate New York. And I read that book a long time ago, and it fascinated me so much, and it gave me a different perspective on initiative and effort. So, and
Wow.
somebody found it.
Okay.
Look at Serena found it. Thanks, Serena.
I have just added it. Exactly. Thank you. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'm with you. I've just added it to my Goodreads. I'm popping the link in there. I love things that are so like unexpected, like so left field. That's really interesting, Robert. All right, a few more questions. What have we got? Okay, we've got a bit of time. My computer is on its last legs, so all right, we're fine. From Chris, great insights. Would you consider doing a pro bono consulting for scaling my product based on revenue sharing with your company? My product is an AI-powered diet plan generator based on WHO standards for just $9 a year. For a diet plan, you can generate customized diet plans. Chris, you guys might want to take that offline.
Well,
Rob,
Chris,
what's your initial
reach
thoughts?
out to the One Day community. We're all, I mean, I don't think the founders use the network and the immense amount of very skilled and experienced and wonderful people that are all the mentors. And of course, we're all here to help, but you need to throw that on Slack and you're going to get a lot of different perspectives. That's the other thing, is don't always settle for one person's perspective. Get a few different ones and pick which seems the most natural to what you're trying to build. So
Mhm. Love that. Yeah, Chris, share some more information on Slack, put it out there. Love the way you think, hustler. Mr. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Tavas? Do you know who this is, Robert? Is
I
this
do
another one of your
not.
founders? Tavase Green. I want to utilize an invite-only strategy for my fintech company. Do you think this is a good approach? I want to capture the warm market and lower the CAC by using this approach while providing scarcity in the marketplace. From this approach, user content generation will be key marketing components. If I can just jump in really quickly on that one, Tavas, you may well already know all about this, but check out how Monzo grew in their early days. They used a referral invite-only strategy as well. So you might want to check out that case study for more details. Robert, do you have any thoughts on that one at all?
Yeah. Have you done enough research in the market in general? So most people jump right to a micro research, and it seems like that. And I could be I'm assuming this, right? But know the field you're jumping into. So do kind of go up a little on macro and have conversations to see what or how that's perceived as an invite only and to who. Because I don't know specifically who you're speaking to. And sometimes how are you going to get through the gatekeeper if it's an invite only and I don't know anything about you? Right? Most emails
Yeah.
go unread and deleted immediately. And that's why, once again, if you have the real relationship build, it increases all those open rates, it lowers your CAC, right? Because they already know and semi-trust and like you, right? They already
Yeah.
have some kind of reference point. If you're just going out and saying this is invite only and I don't know anything about you, I'm probably going to delete it, to be brutally honest.
Yeah, makes sense. He's got a steering group. All right, make sure there's a lot of community engagement, I would say, in that steering group to us. And I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm sorry. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. It is, oh, Tavares. Sorry, I can't hear you, so I'm just going off messages. So I'm just reading the text on screen. I apologize. Please keep the conversation going on our community Slack channel. You should all be in there. If not already, then tag one of us. We can get you in there. For any advice, it's, we can give you better advice the more specific we know about your business, your company, the space. The broader, the more generalized, it's just the more generalized the advice is going to be. And that goes not just for myself and Robert, but for anyone else. So share some more information with us in the chat, in the community channel afterwards, and we'll do our best to give you some pointers. Thank you
Can I
so
jump
much.
in one thing? Because I know you
Yeah, of
said something
course.
about, and you're very welcome. Brian's a great mentor. I just got the chat wasn't showing up for me at this end, so I apologize. But Brian's a phenomenal mentor, so you're lucky to have him. But be careful of steering groups. Groupthink doesn't always work. I make people individually give me their perspective and research before I ever bring it into a group setting, because sometimes you get the strongest
Mm,
personality leading that steering group. And I don't know how you're
mm,
running it, but the bigger
mm,
number of a steering group doesn't always mean that it's effective.
yeah, it can get diluted, can't it? Great tip there, Robert. Thank you. All right. Another message in the chat. Fantastic. Okay, great. All right, let's quickly recap our quiz. It's only a couple of questions, so let's see how much attention you've been paying to the start of the show this evening. Robert, one piece of co-founder advice that you hate. Is it A, put the customer first? Is it B, fake it till you make it? Or is it C, your health is your wealth? Can you give us the answer?
Oh, am I giving the answer now?
I
Fake
think
it till
everyone's
you
had enough
make it.
time. Yeah, fantastic. Well done. What's the best way to scale any business? Is it to go hiking and carry it up the mountains? Is it to refine your pitch deck for external fundraising? Or is it to simplify your messaging and focus on real relationships?
Obviously, I think everybody knows after this hour of hearing from me, it's the real relationships and simplify. You can't scale if it's complex. The more
Love
complex you
that.
make something, the harder it is to grow and scale.
Love that. Love that. Robert, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure. I could definitely go on for longer, but I have my dinner waiting and my laptop is on single digit percent. So we're wrapping up just in the nick of time. No, but genuinely really, really grateful. So interesting. And obviously, most importantly, I hope that all of you listening in right now have enjoyed this conversation, have learned something new, that it's given you some food for thought. And again, reach out to us on the community Slack channel and we can continue the conversation.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I look forward to meeting all of you. And Steph, thank you. Always a pleasure spending time with you.
Likewise.
So.
Likewise. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.